I think we are ready to start.
Okay. Greetings. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Nirmala Rao. I'm from the University of Hong Kong, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to today's event. Today, we will be having a webinar, which is jointly organized by ECDAN, the Early Childhood Development Action Network, and the Khalifa Award for Education. Both ECDAN and the Khalifa Award for Education have a common objective of improving early childhood education and development globally, be it through the conduct of evidence-based research or through the sharing of good practices. In this webinar, we will present a few international programs that combine research, proven techniques, and strategies to enhance early learning. I'm joined today by 4 of our award winners of the last Khalifa Award for Early Learning. We will hear presentations from them, and I'm also joined by ECDAN's Executive Director, Elizabeth Lully, who will speak about ECDAN's Knowledge Fellows Program and current projects that our fellows are undertaking to fill knowledge gaps in the field. It's absolutely understandable why ECDAN and the Khalifa International Award for Early Learning have joined hands for this event because of their common objectives. I'd like to provide a little bit of background to the award, the Khalifa Award, before we hear from our wonderful awardees from last round. So the Khalifa Award for Early Learning had its first run last year, and this award has 2 categories. You will hear more about these 2 categories from me, but basically we have 2 awards for best research, and 2 awards for best practices and programs and curricula. Each of these awards comes with a monetary amount of $50,000, and I, along with other members of our awarding committee, are particularly looking for scalable practices and evidence-based practices. Last year, we had over 300 applicants, and we selected the best 4. And absolutely delighted to have our winners present their projects. Each of the winners will have 10 minutes to share their findings with you, and you will clearly see why they were selected. So may I begin by calling our first awardee, Sonia Giza from South Africa, to tell us about Data Drive. Over to you, Sonia.
Thanks, Nirmala. Thanks very much. And hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Great. So Data Drive 2030 is a social enterprise that was established in Cape Town, South Africa last year. And we aim to support the collection and use of high quality child outcomes data in order to improve the quality of programming for young children. Now, one of our projects, a big flagship project, is the Thrive by 5 Index. And the Thrive by 5 Index was the recipient of the Khalifa Award. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the index. So we place a lot of emphasis in South Africa, like I think many other countries do, on how children complete their schooling. Every year, the matric results come out. They're the front page of the newspaper. They're ministerial briefings. Parents get excited. Learners get excited. But the reality is that only about half of children who start school ever reach matric. And so we thought it was as important, if not more important, for us to develop a measure that looks at the percentage of children who are actually starting school on track. And this was the motivation behind the establishment of the Thrive by 5 Index. So the index is a multi-sectoral partnership involving government, philanthropy, NGOs, as well as the private sector. And the idea behind the index was to really be able to report on the percentage of children who are on track in key areas of development, and also to be able to get some understanding of what the predictors of these outcomes might be so that it could inform improved programming. So between September and November 2021, right between COVID waves, it was extraordinarily challenging. The index assessed over 5,000 4-year-olds across the country. Each of the blue circles that you see on the map of South Africa here represents a cluster of 3 early learning programs. In total, we visited over 1,200 early learning programs across all 9 provinces. And every single child of those 5,000 odd children, every single child was assessed individually, direct assessment in their mother tongue. We have 11 official languages in South Africa. And we use locally developed standardized tools called the Early Learning Outcomes Measures. We also did classroom observations in 1/3 of the participating early learning programs. Now, for each child, you can see here a picture. At the time, we had to use masks for children and for assessors. It was incredibly complicated, but every single child was assessed on a number of domains. So the first we looked at was early learning, and that's all the sort of key domains that we know. We also have a measure of task orientation. And then we looked at physical growth, and for here, we only looked at height for age as a measure of stunting. And then there was an interview with the child's teacher, practitioner, which looked at the child's social emotional functioning. And this includes 2 subscales: social relations with peers and adults, and the child's emotional readiness for school. And then, as I mentioned, at 1/3 of the early learning programs, we also did a quality assessment, which involved a 2-hour observation of practitioner-child interactions. So the Thrive by 5 is the largest survey of preschool child outcomes ever undertaken in South Africa. The final weighted sample is 5,139 children, and it allowed us to reliably report on the percentage of children attending early learning programs who are at age-appropriate levels in key areas of development. And the information can be disaggregated. We can look at the difference between boys and girls. We can look at the difference between children in different income levels and by province. I'm going to give you just a quick insights into some of the key findings because I only have a few minutes. But what we found was that less than half of children, 46% of children attending an early learning program in South Africa, start school with the right foundations in place. Now, there's an important caveat here in that we only assess children attending programs. And because it was COVID, only about 50% of 4-year-olds were actually in programs. So it's likely that for those children who weren't in programs, that their outcomes would have been even worse. So 46% of children are on track, and 28% of children, importantly, are falling far behind the standard when it comes to early learning overall, and are likely to need intensive intervention as they transition into the schooling system. We also were able to look at each domain independently, and these 5 domains are, you know from the literature, they're very well established as predictors of children's performance as they go into the foundation phase. And in particular, we found very poor performance in these 3 areas: fine motor, emergent numeracy and maths, and cognition and executive functioning. And when we looked at how children perform across the income levels, we find a very stark socioeconomic gradient. And we didn't have information on children's household income. So we used the fee levels charged at the early learning programs as a proxy for income. And you'll see the green line shows the percentage of children who are meeting the expected standard for early learning overall. And on the x-axis, you can see 5 bands for income, for fee levels. And you can see that only 3 out of 10 children in the lowest fee band were on track versus 8 out of 10 children in the wealthiest fee band. So this is a very strong call to action for all stakeholders in South Africa who are committed to reducing inequality to really pay more attention to how children are starting school. Once again, we looked at specific domains through this lens of income, and we find that for the poorest children, they are 10 times more likely to be falling far behind when it comes to cognition and executive functioning than a child in the wealthiest income group. And a child's capacity to learn relies heavily on cognition and executive functioning. So this has very, very serious implications. And especially when one considers that the poorest children are likely to go into schools that are the most poorly resourced, which means that these children are going into a schooling system that actually does not have the resources or the capacity for remediation. And so we are setting our poorest children up for failure. For social emotional functioning, we found that 1 in 3 boys and 1 in 4 girls did not meet the standard for social relations. This poorer performance among boys is actually something we see across all domains except gross motor, where boys were performing worse than girls. And again, this is something that we need to investigate further. So these children who struggle with social relations with peers and adults will struggle to resolve problems without aggression, to seek support. And then the second subscale for this is emotional readiness for school. And again, we found boys performing worse than girls. Overall, about 1/3 of children did not meet the standard for emotional readiness for school. And here, these children will struggle with age-appropriate levels of independence, struggle to express their feelings, and to adjust to change into the schooling system. And we found very strong relationship actually between children's social emotional functioning and their learning outcomes. And this is something we've actually investigated a lot more since then. And I think it really highlights the need for a full suite of services and support for young children, even when looking at things through a learning lens. Social emotional functioning has been a key predictor of better outcomes. And of course, risk is compounded in some children. We see some children facing multiple risks. And as an example, we found that a child who in the lowest income group, who is stunted, was developmentally already 1 whole year behind a child of normal growth in the wealthiest income group when it comes to early learning. And these children were only 4 years old. This has very massive implications. Overall, we found 6% of children to be stunted, but we did actually find that even for those children who were only mildly stunted, which is another 14% of children, we found that even they were facing cognitive delays when compared to their non-stunted peers. So again, highlights the fact that one needs a very holistic response to the needs of young children. The Thrive by 5 Index was launched in April 2022. We have a dedicated website. I'll share the slides after this, and there's a link to the website. We did extensive media coverage and a lot of targeted engagement with various key stakeholder groups to make sure that they were able to understand and act on the data. The data are made open access as well, open access repository at the University of Cape Town, and they've been downloaded and used many, many times all around the world. Now, 2021 was the baseline survey for the Thrive by 5 Index, and essentially established a proof of concept that this could be done and that it could be enormously valuable. From 2024, we'll be doing the first and trend data, and the intention is to repeat data collection every 3 years. For the 2024 data collection, we'll also be adding additional measures. So you'll be pleased to know we are going to be looking at the children who are not enrolled in early learning programs. We're also going to be looking at children's home circumstances, and we're looking at a number of other things, such as, for example, children's exposure to environmental hazards. Now, what this data does is it helps us to tell a story, but we are more motivated by how we change the story. And so in between each of these data collection points, we use the data to support action. And you'll see here the image I'm sure you're all familiar with, the Nurturing Care Framework. And the idea is that we work with stakeholders who are engaged in various activities from policy all the way down to programming within each area of the Nurturing Care Framework to see how we can support their use of the data to improve their programming, to support their advocacy efforts, etc. Now, obviously, this is a massive collective effort I'm presenting today, but there are many, many individuals, organizations, government departments, funders who have played a massive role in enabling this. And I also want to give a real special thanks to Khalifa International Award for Education. I think receiving this award has helped us to share the message more globally at events like this, so really reach a more global audience. We also were successful since then in raising funds for our next round of the index in 2024. And based on the demand that we're getting and the levels of interest, we are now developing a roadmap, which really consolidates our lessons and all the steps in the process for anyone who would like to undertake something like this in their countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for such a wonderful presentation. It was really clear, and now you know why Sonia was one of the winners of our Best Research and Studies category awards. Sonia, as you know, is the Executive Director of Data Drive 2030, which led this case study. So thank you so much for your very clear presentation, Sonia. So we're going to leave South Africa now, and we're going to the US. Thank you, Sonia. And we will hear about our second award, and this award is from the other category called Best Programs, Curricula, Teaching Methodologies and Practices. And our presenter will be Emma Nasland Hadley, who is the lead education specialist from the Inter-American Development Bank. And she will present her award-winning submission. Over to you, Emma, and the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and be able to share about this project, which is very close to my heart. I'm going to start the presentation. Let's see. I hope that everyone can see that. So what inspired us to develop Jadengo was that throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, where I work, then there are vast content and pedagogical gaps between Indigenous students and their peers. It's on the standardized primary education regional test, the gaps between Indigenous students and their peers is 70 percentage points in many countries, or above 70 percentage points. So and then when we look at why are there such vast learning gaps? A huge contributor to these vast learning gaps is that in intercultural bilingual schools where the Indigenous students are going to school, then teachers assigned to those schools, they neither speak the language nor know the culture, and also it tends to be teachers with the largest pedagogical and content gaps. And obviously a long-term solution has to be to send more prepared teachers to these schools, to train people from the Indigenous communities to become teachers. But lots of advocates, including in the Inter-American Development Bank, we've been insisting on this for decades and decades, and we don't see change. So this inspired us then to develop Jadengo. And so the challenge that we wanted to address is to be able to provide quality math instruction at preschool in a context then of vast pedagogical and content gaps of teachers, also cultural and language skill gaps of teachers. And so we came up with using interactive audio instruction. and with an audio that guides the teacher throughout the lesson. And the audios, they are speaking Spanish and then in repeating everything in Nobere, which is the indigenous language of the Nobe people. And we developed 108 audio lessons to cover the entire preschool math curriculum from Panama, but also to be able to incorporate beyond the Western math of that preschool math curriculum. We also incorporated the Nobe math, which is a separate mathematics system. I'll come back to that. Every classroom also received a radio where the teacher could play the audio lessons. They received post-audio materials to reinforce the lessons. They received visible and tangible materials like counters and clocks and scales, etc., to be able to geometric solids. Also books like children's stories with math stories that were incorporated the Nobe culture. And the project, of course, is a collaboration of many, not least the members of the Nobe community where we mapped the cultural practices, games, songs, traditions, children's games particularly, that we mapped to incorporate into the lessons. So I worked for the Inter-American Development Bank, or here the logo is in Spanish, BID. And then we also worked with the Organization of Ibero-American States, the Ministry of Education, of course, in Panama, the NGO IPA, Innovations for Poverty Actions. They specialized in randomized control experiments. And we had generous funding from the government of Japan for this project. So first, I'm going to mention a little bit about the evaluation design. And the evaluation design for us was very important because we did an experimental design to be able to determine the precise impact of the program, because we already from the beginning had the idea that if it works, we want to be able to scale it. So we use standardized learning assessments. We had questionnaires for teachers, for caregivers, for school principals. And to measure learning, then we used a preschool version of the early grade math assessment. And we also had the early grade reading assessment, a preschool version. The reading assessment, the program doesn't support reading, but we included it just to see if there were spillover effects. We measured mathematics anxiety, which is something that we typically measure in all programs where we teach mathematics. Ethnomathematics, of course, cultural values, oral comprehensions, and then perceptions about mathematics. This is one of the questions that we use to measure ethnomathematics. And so here it says in Spanish, use your fingers to indicate the round object. And the reason that it's important for kids to know what object is round is that in Nobe mathematics, it's very different from Western math, because there the shape of things determine how you count. So in Western math, it doesn't matter if we count tomatoes or carrots. We're going to use the same numbering system, 1, 2, 3, 4. In Nobe, you use a separate language or numbering system if you count round objects than when you count things that are not round. If you count things with 4 legs, you have a separate numbering system. So children in the program learn 13 different ways of counting depending on what they're counting. So this is one of the questions from the assessment. So then briefly results. We implemented randomized control trials in 2018 and 2019. The teachers were the same, but there were new cohorts of students. So what we implemented this in 2 cohorts of students. So in terms of Western math skills, we both in 2018 and 2019, we had an impact on learning of Western math. The impact was larger in 2019, and that's, we believe, based on the qualitative evaluation, etc., that it's because teachers were more secure and knew more how to implement the program. So that improved then the treatment. So just briefly to mention how much is 0.22 standard deviation. What's that? Because so that's how much more the kids in the treatment group that received Kadengo learned Western math compared to their peers in the control group. And what we see really throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, including Panama, we see that in one academic year in preschool and primary, a child learns 0.4 standard deviation in mathematics. That's like on average how much a child learns in mathematics. So what this means is that the children that received Kadengo learned half a school year more of mathematics compared to their peers in the control group. So that's pretty awesome, without increasing the hours of math instruction, they learned half a school year extra of mathematics. When we look to ethnomathematics, the learning the 13 different ways of counting, also there we saw improvements. And also there we saw like the first year when teachers like were learning how to do this, then it was an impact, but it was even larger the second year. In terms of other results, we had no impact on Spanish comprehension. We had no impact on reading comprehension in Novere, like early literacy. But we did have impact on cultural identity, that the children knew more about their own Nove culture. In terms of qualitative findings, then we noted that teachers and students really had fun, like they had more fun in the treatment classroom. So basically what we did, we filmed a smaller random sample in each group, in the treatment group, in the control group, and then we coded those lessons and analyzed them. And it appeared that children and teachers had more fun in the treatment classrooms because the model uses lots of singing and dancing and games to learn math. It's very play-based. And also we noticed that pedagogy was implemented as intended, and that's important because we had teachers of varying skill levels, but thanks to the audio, we kind of managed to have a homogeneous treatment that was consistently of high quality thanks to this audio. And also we noted that there were more caregiver engagement, that caregivers visited the schools more often. In the treatment group, they felt clearly closer to the school when they were instruction in Nove and using their own culture. A challenge that we identified in the qualitative evaluation was that really teachers, they liked using the audios, but then the training and use of the post audio content, which didn't have the audio, they used that less. So that's something to work on for the future. So then in conclusion, then Kadengo improves Western math skills and mathematics skills without adding any additional hours of instruction. It's just by changing the pedagogy, you improve learning. It also improves knowledge of Nove culture. And we also found, which I haven't showed here because there's a lack of time, but the teacher's knowledge of Novere and of ethnomathematics improved also. And then I just briefly wanted to mention what's happened after we did this in 2019. So what's happened is that Kadengo has been scaled in Panama throughout the beautiful and large geographical area where the Nove people live. It's all preschoolers in that area now receive Jadengo, and that the IDB where I work, we provided funding, so now it's scaled throughout. Also, we provided funding so that it's now not. We've expanded to first grade, so all first graders in the Nove area also receive Jadengo, and we're planning to scale to additional grades. And then in Peru, then the government of Peru got inspired when they saw this. So we've developed the Materaimi, which is the same program but in Quechua and with Quechua mathematics. We've developed that for preschool, and we're going to start implementing it in 2024. And then also, I think largely thanks to the Khalifa Award, then something else that happened is that the Inter-American Development Bank, where I work, we organize each year a dialogue meeting between all the ministers of education in Latin America and the Caribbean. So it's 26 ministers of education that come together every year to look in more depth at some issue of education. And in June of next year, when we have the meeting, then actually one of the top issues that we will talk about and share is intercultural bilingual education, and present to them Jadengo when they meet in Brazil next year, the ministers of education at this dialogue meeting. And that I don't think would have been possible unless we had received the Khalifa International Award for Early Learning. So thank you so much. I'm available for questions if anyone has questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Emma, for that wonderful and inspiring presentation. I think the audience will know why you have been awarded the award in the category of Best Programs, Curricula, Teaching Methodologies and Practices. Really inspiring, and we're particularly happy to hear about the scaling up of these excellent practices. So now let us leave the US and travel to North Africa's Morocco, where we're so delighted to have another award winner from the Best Programs, Curricula, Teaching Methodologies and Practices category. We have Hahula Rice, who is a Program Development Officer of the Zakura Foundation, and she will present their ANIR project, which won the award. Hula, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nirmala. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks everyone for the participation. And now I will be sharing my screen to gladly present the ANIR program. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So before presenting the program, I would like first to present or to introduce the Zakura Foundation, which is a Moroccan NGO founded in 1997, and that is very active in three main fields that we call them the 3 E's, which are education, employability of young people, and empowerment of women. And this with the main focus on communities of rural and disadvantaged areas in Morocco, where social, of course, and economic challenges are very accentuated. So the Zakura Foundation acts mainly through its 3 pillars. So we have 3 main departments. So the Zakura Lab, which I am part of, and that is in charge of developing, experimenting, and evaluating programs, and also sharing the studies and the results related to the programs. Also, we have the Zakura Academy, which is the department that delivers trainings and capacity building sessions to the workforce and also external actors. And then we have the core of the foundation, which is the Zakura Education, which is the department in charge of implementing and monitoring the programs. It is so important to mention that although the diversity of the foundation programs, the early childhood education program remain one of the major projects of the foundation because it takes the largest share of beneficiaries, funds, and workforce. And it also reflects the foundation's concern about ensuring high quality, free, and inclusive access to education for children aged between 4 and 6 years old, and especially in rural areas. So the foundation is really concerned about rural areas, and this in order to reduce education access gap in Morocco. And here I will leave you with some numbers, which reflects the 25 years commitment of the foundation. As you can see, we have many programs, and the beneficiaries are split between early educational programs, academic remediation programs, literacy, empowerment, scholarships, self-entrepreneurship programs, parenting programs. So as you can see, here are the numbers that reflect the impact of the foundation. And now let's move to talking about the ANIR program. So ANIR stands for national initiative for early childhood education in rural areas. So the initials are in French, but this is the translation in English. It's a program co-developed between the foundation, the Ministry of Education, the National Initiative of Human Development in Morocco. And the main objective of the project is promoting inclusive and sustainable early childhood education, especially in rural areas. And this while adopting a community-based model and also a holistic approach in order to promote inclusive, high quality, and cost-effective early childhood education. And as for the specific objectives, we have improving access to quality education for the most vulnerable rural children, ensuring registration in primary school. So because when children have access to early childhood education, they are able to access primary school in the same age, like 6 years old, like more or less. And this is really helpful in terms of reducing the learning challenges, gaps between children. We also have improved, like one of the specific objectives are improving the fundamental skills acquisition, reducing school dropouts, fostering frequent and positive interactions between parents, teachers, communities, and children. And finally, like achieving and gathering data-based evidence in order to replicate the model. So what is the question now is what is so special, what is so original about the program? So the program main strength is the community-based model. So the program doesn't only target children, but also targets parents, teachers, because we recruit and train teachers locally. And we also have awareness sessions with the whole community, with stakeholders, and with like everyone in one rural area. Because when we talk about social innovation, we talk like about a very important concept, which is the territory, which is respecting the territory's specificities, needs, and also resources. So in order to transcribe this approach, the program had three main components. The first component is
Sorry, Halua, may I interrupt? A few of the participants are asking you to go to PowerPoint mode. You're right now because they found the
yes,
font too small.
Yes,
thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks for the remark. I was saying that in order to transcribe this approach in the program has three main components. The first component is, of course, targeting the children, children aged between 4 to 6 years old. And this program has like targets executive functions. And then we have another component, which is a positive parenthood program. It was developed also by between the foundation and the UNICEF. We have also sessions of awareness models for mothers, fathers, and communities. And last but not least, we have capacity building initiatives for educators, teachers, and local associations in order to maintain the sustainability of the program. As for the steps of implementing the program, first of all, we go through the needs analysis because we were really concerned about respecting the needs of every region, respecting the particularities of every region. So we do like prospection and also qualitative research in order to define the needs, expectations, and motivation. Then we organize sessions with the different actors in the community in order to co-construct the program with them, where is a holistic and participative approach. So we organize awareness campaigns targeting the local communities and several meetings with local authorities to get their public support. Then comes the role of the Zakura Academy, which delivers the training sessions for educators. And it's really important to note that the educators are locally recruited in order to maintain the to guarantee the sustainability of the program. And then and then we implement the program. As I was saying before, like it has three components, like the children program, the early childhood program, the positive parenting education, and also some occasional literacy classes and sessions, and then capacity building for the local associations. And then we have done many, like 3 impact studies, in addition to the continuous evaluation done by the foundation. And here, this presents the strengths of the program. As I was saying, our whole social innovation was based on the participative approach. So we have build, operate, transfer model, which is a very simple yet efficacious model based on low tech innovation. We don't really rely on technology because, as you may know, in rural areas in Morocco, access to internet is very limited. So we try to work on low-tech solutions. And then the other strength is the community-based preschool model, because the recruitment is done locally, and also the curriculum is co-constructed with the community, and it involve like local references, activities that focus on like plays valuing the local environment, neighborhood, fauna and flora, landscape, and local history. And it's deeply rooted and sensitive to local cultures. As for the language problem, like in some rural areas, we have the challenge of language, because in some areas they don't talk Arabic. They talk their maternal language is Amazigh. So we try to deliver these programs in the maternal language and ensure a smooth transition between the maternal language and the Arabic and French language. And of course, I also already talked about the Positive Parenthood program developed by the UNICEF. And one of the strengths also is the sustainability of the community-based model, because even if the foundation is not anymore responsible or in charge of this program, we try to do the capacity building of the local actors through a program. And here we can see how a near classroom looks like. It tries to respect the international standards of quality when it comes to early childhood units. As for the assessment and impact, the foundation is really concerned about like the continuous assessment. So we do assessment throughout the implementation of the program, and we focus, when it comes to internal assessment, we focus on the average absence of children, because the main problematic of that the program tries to deal with is access. So we focus on the absence of children, the attendance rates, the rates of dropouts, and the rates of on-time enrollment in the primary school system. This is the internal assessment model. We also have done 3 external assessments, which are focusing on the impact of this program, the satisfaction of children, of parents, of teachers, and of the whole community. So in 2017, we have done 2 studies based on randomized control study, and one that is based on qualitative method. And both studies evaluate community-based preschool models in terms of relevancy, overall efficiency, cost effectiveness, and sustainability. And the last study was done, concerned the period between 2016 and 2021. It was also done externally, and was done in 3 phases. The first one was a documentary analysis of public policies, studies, activity reports, statistics. The second one is a qualitative phase, and the last one is a quantitative phase. And here you can see some numbers that was pointed by the impact studies and the continuous assessment. So here we can see that the number of children who benefited from the program was 16,000, which is really a really like high rate. The girls, the half of this number is girls, because we are really concerned about the gender equity when it comes to access to education. And as you can see, we have 0.46 wastage rate of children accessing education. Here are some pictures of the program. Now, in order to conclude, I will talk about the Khalifa Award, because it was really helpful for the foundation and for the program. When it comes to the funds, they were used in order to develop a program for earlier stages of childhood, covering pregnancy and also the period from 0 to 6 years. I was saying before that the annual program initially was only targeting the period of early childhood from 4 to 6 years. But now, because of the award and thanks to the Khalifa Award, we are extending the period of the stage of early childhood. And with these funds, we have organized a national competition on innovation in early childhood education, which now we are organizing the second edition of this competition. And the idea is to motivate educators to innovate around the early childhood education. And at the end of this competition, the foundation delivers prizes to the best winning projects. Also the award has allowed the foundation or the program to gain more visibility and legitimacy, and therefore we were able to replicate the program in more regions. So we are really grateful for the Khalifa Award, and we thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ula, for your wonderful presentation, really groundbreaking work. And we're so delighted that the award has been used by all the presenters, organizations to actually scale up the good practice. This is indeed one of the objectives of the award. So from North Africa, we will go back to the United States. And last but not least, we can watch the video prepared by our fourth award winner who is Dr. Laura Justice. She's a distinguished professor of educational psychology at Ohio State University. Unfortunately, Laura could not be here, but she was so kindly recorded a presentation of her work that won an award in the Best Research and Studies category. Could we please turn on Laura's presentation?
Hello, I'm Laura Justice, calling in from Ohio State University, where I'm a professor of educational psychology. I'm going to spend a bit of time with you today sharing information about our scientifically based intervention called Sit Together and Read, or STAR, which we developed, refined, evaluated, and have scaled as an easy-to-use method for improving young children's early literacy skills. In particular, STAR seeks to improve young children's print knowledge. Print knowledge is an aspect of early literacy development that concerns young children's developing knowledge of the forms and the functions of print. So print knowledge includes, in an alphabetic language, learning the systems that we use to represent letters, the way that we put letters together to make words. And in this case, you have a 4-year-old child who's written a grocery list. It says, I think it says, banana, apple, apple. And you see here what we call invented spelling, very typical to see in young children who are developing print knowledge. Print knowledge also includes children being able to do things like write their name. And so for this child, Juwan, who's 4 years of age, Juwan was asked to draw a portrait of himself, and you see his portrait, and to sign his name. And so what Juwan's visual here shows is that Juwan has figured out that print is a separate symbolic system from, say, artistic depictions. It also shows that Juwan knows at least some of the letters of the alphabet. Jawan understands left to right directionality, which is what's used in the English orthography. It also shows that Jawan knows how to put letters together to make words. Really importantly, it also shows that Jawan understands that print is a system for representing his thoughts and ideas. Just like oral language is how we communicate with others, written language is also how we communicate via the written form. One of the reasons I'm so very interested in print knowledge is that it's considered to be a universal cognitive prerequisite for children to become readers. So universal means that across all of the world's written languages, children need to learn the print form and functions in that language as a milestone on the path to becoming a reader. It's a cognitive prerequisite because it's a brain-based knowledge of a symbolic system, and the term prerequisite means that you have to develop knowledge of print forms and functions as a path towards becoming a reader. So across all of the world's languages, before children can become readers in a conventional sense, they have to have developed understandings of what print is and what it does. For many children, particularly those who are not raised in print-rich homes or print-rich communities, they don't develop print knowledge on their own. This isn't something that kids just discover this new body of knowledge about how print works and what it does. It's something that for many kids needs to be taught or experienced explicitly, or what we might say intentionally. So here with my colleagues, we've developed an early childhood intervention called print-focused read-alouds. And a print-focused read-aloud is a very simple strategy in which we as adults read books with children, and we deliberately make print an aspect of the reading routine. So for instance, this book here, The Pigeon Will Ride the Roller Coaster, a great children's book by Mo Willems. If I was reading this with a young child and using a print-focused read-aloud approach, I would hold the book up. I would say, oh, the name of this book is The Pigeon Will Ride the Roller Coaster. Where's the title? And see if the child can basically imitate what I just did. And then I might say something like, oh, the pigeon is saying, I'm getting emotional, I'm getting emotional. And then I might say to the child, what is the pigeon saying? What are these words? So I'm making print a deliberate part of the shared reading routine, which is made very easy to do if you're reading books like this one by Mo Willems, where print is a really compelling aspect of the book design. So print-focused read-alouds, again, are read-alouds between adults and children when the adult makes the print part of the reading routine. Typically, when adults read with young children, we talk a lot about the storyline, we talk a lot about the illustrations, and we don't tend to be deliberate about the book, about the print within the book. So print-focused read-alouds include pointing to the print, tracking the print as long as you read, commenting on print, and questioning about print. So this is a page of a book from Spot Bakes a Cake. This is a study we did where we had, we were looking at kids' visual attention to the storybook using an eye scanner. And what you see here are kids' visual attention as they're being read a book. These black dots are where the child's eye fixates on the print. And then these colored lines are called saccades, where you're fixating on print, you're moving, fixating on print, moving around. What you see here is what's very typical in young children who are not readers. They focus very intensively on the pictures, and they never visually attend to or process print. So by pointing to print, tracking print, commenting on print, questioning about print, we're helping scaffold the child's attention towards the printed elements of the book. I will show you one thing you may have noticed here, which is you do see some fixations on print when that print is embedded in illustration. So as I continue talking for just a few more minutes, keep in mind that when I talk about print-focused read-alouds, we really want to look for storybooks in which print is an interesting aspect of the book design with, say, embedded print in the pictures. So Sit Together and Read is a manualized book reading program featuring print-focused read-alouds that are designed to improve children's knowledge about print. And it's manualized in that when we work with teachers or speech therapists or others who read regularly with children, we've laid out a scope and sequence of basically print knowledge objectives that we want children to learn over a period of short reading. So we want children to learn about how books in print is organized. For instance, in English, we go top to bottom, left to right. We want children to learn that print conveys meaning. It's a meaningful symbolic system. And we want children to learn about letters and words as fundamental units of print. So this is a busy slide, but this intervention is so simple. We give teachers or parents a book a week, and we pick books that are very print rich, have lots of interesting print features. And with each book, we give the adult what we call a star card, Sit Together and Read. And it's just a card that says, as you read this book, in this case, it's the Dandelion Seed, we want you to include as a focus of your conversation when you're sharing the book, we want you to talk about uppercase and lowercase letters and the top and bottom of page. So every book, you get a book a week. Typically when we do this work, a parent, teacher gets a book a week, and it's organized so that we give them a guide via the star cards to know what aspects of print we want them to be talking about. And then we also give adults a guide to scaffold children's experiences as we talk about print, because for some children, we're talking about print when we read, and it's just too hard. They don't know what a letter is. They don't know what a word is. So we provide guidance on how to support kids where we're talking about print in a way that's too hard. And then there's also kids where we say, do you know this letter in this book? And the child's like, yeah, I know all my letters. You know, they know a lot about print. And so we give guidance for kids who find talking about print too easy, so that in either way, we can scaffold children's engagement in these read-alouds. So just to summarize quickly, the intervention STAR involves, I can give you, we're doing a study right now we're partnering with a children's hospital, and we're enrolling parents with 4-year-old children who have developmental disabilities. The parents will read with their children for a 15-week period, 4 times a week. So that'll be 60 reading sessions. We give a book a week, we give a star card, and we usually instruct the adults we work with to read 3 or 4 times per week for a set period of time. We have done multiple large-scale randomized controlled trials of the STAR approach. The first study, STAR 1, very creative. We worked in 85 preschool classrooms serving children from low-income homes. That was a clinical trial. STAR 2, we worked in 83 classrooms serving young children with disabilities. STAR 3 was partnering through a hospital system to work with parents whose kids have developmental disabilities. In the ongoing study I just mentioned is building upon STAR 3. We're working with a local children's hospital. 320 parents will implement a 15-week book reading program with their kids with developmental disabilities. Across every one of these studies, we find that when adults receive guidance on how to read with children with a print-focused style, we see significant improvements in children's knowledge about print. What's also very exciting in the several studies we've done where we follow kids longitudinally after the period of intervention, In STAR 1 in particular, where we had preschool teachers implement sit together and read for a whole academic year in their classroom. We followed those children, I believe it was about 500, through through first grade, 2 years after the intervention. And what we found is significant improvements in reading skill compared to children in a control condition. So we're very excited about this work. This is an extremely low-cost intervention. You simply need kids' storybooks, which at least in some places like the US, you can find for pretty low costs. The other thing that's really exciting about this is people have picked up Sit Together and Read and applied it in a variety of other contexts, including Australia, Canada. Currently, there's work in Brazil. I have personally done work in Mexico with Spanish-speaking children where their parents implemented STAR, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and Taiwan. So this is an intervention. It's low cost. It has demonstrated impacts across a number of experimental trials, and it appears to be adaptable to a range of diverse cultural settings. Just briefly, I did want to touch on the results from that first trial to give a hint to what we see. It involved 550 children, and their preschool teachers read with a print-focused style for 30 weeks over the course of an academic year. What we find is very high levels of fidelity. This is very easy for teachers to implement. As I mentioned, it's very low cost. It needs only children's storybooks. We see short-term impacts over the preschool year on multiple measures of print knowledge and sustained impacts 2 years later on measures of reading achievement. The other thing that is really amenable to at-scale use of Sit Together and Read is that our center here at Ohio State has a website completely devoted to the STAR approach. Everything is free. You can get manuals of how to implement, you can get training videos, and so on and so forth. So this can be picked up and scaled at very low costs and adapted to a range of areas across the globe. So I do encourage you to check out our website. You can just look at STAR, Google search STAR, Crane Center, Ohio State University. You should find everything. And as always, you're welcome to email me directly and I can provide any additional guidance. I am really grateful I had the opportunity to be with you today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this session. Thank you.
I'm sure you will agree that these 4 award-winning projects are revolutionizing early childhood education globally. We encourage you to apply for the Khalifa International Award for Early Learning 2024. If you have pioneering initiatives, just like the ones we've just heard about, please do apply. The award wants to promote research and development while enriching the culture of excellence and innovation in early childhood education worldwide. As you can tell, we're really trying to create a platform for the discovery and recognition of research, programs, methodologies, and advanced teaching practices. We also want to honor distinguished educators, and just like the ones that you've heard. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 categories: best programs, curricula, teaching methodologies, and practices, as well as best research and studies. And each category has 2 awards. Individuals, organizations, or groups may make submissions, and the deadline for submission is January 12th, 2024. Last year, we had submissions from 61 countries, a truly global lot of applications. And you can hear, as you just heard, actually, the 4 awardees were from different corners of the earth. Just a little bit more about the award. The entries have to be submitted online, and they should be a maximum of 10 pages, and they have to outline the program or research. Okay. A panel of academics, including Professor Steve Barnett, Professor Iram Siraj, and Dr. Jana Fleming, and another academic from the UAE will join us, and we will look at, we will evaluate the submissions based on criteria such as innovativeness, importance, impact, methodological rigor, and feasibility or scalability, right? So we really, really encourage you to apply. It is now my great pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, the Executive Director of ECDAN, Early Childhood Development Network, Dr. Elizabeth Luley. Please, Elizabeth, over to you.
Thank you, Nimala, for that introduction, but also for excellent moderation of the webinar today. But first, for those of you who don't know ECDAN, or the ECD Action Network, we are a global platform that was established to catalyze collective action, break down silos, and currently we are a network of about 325 partners and over 6,000 practitioners, policymakers, and researchers who participate in the network. And in terms of what we do as a network, we advocate fiercely for increased investments in the early childhood development and care and education. We also provide a platform for knowledge sharing and learning, and this is exactly what we're doing today. We also connect and catalyze collective action through collaborative initiatives of our members and partners. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to build a movement together to support young children and their caregivers. So today we are delighted to partner with the Khalifa Foundation Awards for Education Initiative, and we're aligned with their values and promoting excellence, rigorous research, innovation, and really recognizing also the researchers and the educators and the teachers who are doing this important work. And congratulations to the awardees, and thank you for sharing your research and excellent work of how you're building the evidence base that we need, particularly also to inform the scale up and also to bring about systems change that is sustainable. I'd like to share about our Knowledge Fellows Program that we started, I believe, very recently. And because my internet is a little bit unstable, I'm going to ask my colleague, Emily Gilkinson, who is our Senior Program Officer, and also works on this program together with Shekufe Zonji, my colleague, to share with you what this Knowledge Fellows program does, but also how it's somewhat connected to the Khalifa Awards to the Education Initiative. Over to you, Emily.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this wonderful event. So inspiring. Our Knowledge Fellows program is something that we wanted to highlight today because, like the awardees, we want to fill knowledge gaps in the ECD field. But in particular, we have created this program for the past 3 years now. It started in 2021 to create opportunities for early career ECD professionals from the Global South to receive professional development, mentorship, and networking connections while working on a project that advances ECDAN's learning goals. So Our wonderful moderator, Dr. Nirmala Rao, is been involved in the Knowledge Fellows program and serving on the steering committee. So we have a number of prominent professionals who help guide this program and help us to select the fellows. So we have an open application process every year. We select 6 or more. This year, we're fortunate to have 7. And we would love if we get more funding to be able to offer this opportunity to even more early career professionals. And we pair each individual fellow with an experienced and seasoned ECD mentor. So as Elizabeth said, we have lots of different partners that we work with, and we work with these technical staff and individuals who I know are on this call as well, have expressed interest in being willing to mentor a fellow and to help kind of progress an area of work in their work in the field. So during this mentorship process, the fellows produce some kind of project. It can be a report, a brief, a case study, an online repository. They can take different shapes depending upon what is the best way to kind of advance this knowledge or kind of fill a gap that exists in the field. So just showcasing that over the past 3 years, we've had mentors and fellows from a wide range of organizations. You can see there are various universities as well as research institutes, as well as implementing organizations. And we're so grateful that our mentors are all volunteering their time. And so this is a wonderful way for to benefit these early career professionals. The Knowledge Fellows have come, we've had 18 so far, and have come from all of the countries that you see here. So again, very wide ranging. This is our current cohort, our 2023 fellows. We're so excited. I know some of them are on the call. They have been starting since July on their projects and are getting close to wrapping them up. So just a quick snapshot of some of the things that they are working on, and you can find all of this on our website too. I'll put that in the chat. Looking a lot at childcare. How do we ensure universal childcare? Looking a lot at parenting. How can we support adolescent parents? How can we showcase parenting programs that are successful for others who may want to try it? What about scaling programs? Have we learned that's effective about that? How can we provide parenting support in humanitarian setting? And how can we use existing tools and approaches for systems thinking to advance ECD outcomes? So these are the projects that our 7 fellows right now are working on. And just to get you excited to learn more, or get involved yourself, we're going to be looking to recruit mentors very soon. So if that's of interest, we'll be looking for people to step up into that role. We'll be pulling out the call for fellows in the new year. And then we will be having our dissemination event where the fellows are sharing their projects. So please follow our website and sign up to our mailing list so that you can get these alerts when these things are happening, and continue to follow this journey of advancing knowledge for the field. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. And I think we could take just a few questions before we close the program to the researchers, but also if there are any questions about the Khalifa Foundation Awards and also about the ECDAN Knowledge Fellows. Emily, do you want to facilitate that? I see there were a couple of questions already sent to some of the researchers.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Elizabeth, would love for the panelists, if you want to all turn on your videos, just so that the our viewers can see all of you. And so there are questions from the Q&A. So a few of them I'll ask panelists to to respond to them in the chat, but a few of them we want to take the time now that we have to answer live. So the first one to Sonia, how did you mobilize resources to conduct these assessments? And the second part of the question is, how long did it take to do these assessments?
Thanks, Emily. Yes. The assessments, or each child assessment was up to an hour, so involving various activities that were done. Overall, the assessments were done over a period of about 8 weeks. And in terms of mobilizing resources, so we had excellent partnerships. We partnered with the First National Bank, which they were our sort of anchor funder, and then we got additional funding from USAID and ECD Measure. But obviously, raising resources is a big part of it, and it's quite an expensive exercise. And I think that the raising resources for proof of concept is often hard, but now that we've actually demonstrated the benefits and the viability of it, I think it's easier to raise resources moving forward.
Thanks so much, Sonia. This is a question also for you. Well, I have you here. A question, you would discuss that you were using school fees as a kind of a proxy for income, recognizing that was too difficult to collect data on, but recognizing that that doesn't necessarily reflect the family's income. Do you want to speak a little bit more about kind of how you interpret that?
Yes, I agree with the person who posted that comment that poorer parents will often, pay school fees despite the fact that they really struggle to do it. So we absolutely recognize that, but we did find actually that the range in fees, we looked at things like correlation to things like access to water, sanitation, access to social grants, and we looked at the relationship with the school quintile system in South Africa, which looks at household employment within a 3-kilometer radius of schools. And so we did fact check it with a number of other sort of things for triangulation purposes, but it's not perfect. And so we will be looking at other measures, actually interviews with household caregivers for more reliable measures of household income in future.
Thanks so much. And kind of sticking with our theme of finances too, and kind of the costs around these projects and implementing them, I'm wondering if we can have Gula to share with us about the cost effectiveness, and kind of how you financed your project as well, and how you made it cost effective, especially as you're scaling up and able to cover such a large scale.
Thank you for the question. So about the cost effectiveness, first of all, like for the annual model, we had gotten funds from the Ministry of Education, from the National Initiative of Human Development, and also from the private sector. But this is only when it comes to the pilot. Our goal is to make the program more sustainable, and this is by recruiting locally, and also by delegating the program to the local authorities and the local actors. Also, we try to use like the low tech innovation, because like first of all, there's a problem of accessibility, but also to make the cost of the program lower. So this is our strategy, is to emphasize and to be based on the local resources and the local recruitment.
Thank you for providing that clarity. A question for all of you, really. We can go kind of a round robin around this, but there's a question that was provided about children with disabilities and developmental delays, and just wanting to kind of hear from each one of you how your program responds to the needs of those children and serves them, or what recommendations you have that could be added on to serve these children with special needs. So maybe I'll start with Emma, since you haven't had a chance to speak yet, and then we can go to Sonia.
Thank you. This Jadengo, it's not specifically designed for students with disability. Obviously, the IDB, like other organizations that work with early childhood, we all promote inclusive education, where you provide assistance to children in the classroom, and rather than having them in, it's quite popular in Latin America and the Caribbean to have separate students with learning and physical disabilities. I'm actually today I'm in Belize right now, and I'm here working with the government on a big program. It's big for Belize. It's a big program. It's $20 million. Because Belize is a very small country, and what the government has asked for is to help develop a program for students with disability, to help first screen students, to have wide screening to identify students with special education needs. So we're working with experts, because I'm not an expert on students with disability, but working with international experts on identifying what screening instruments can be used in this context. And also, we're also doing a mapping of different software specifically designed for students with different disabilities, so that the government can make an informed decision. So I mean, it's when we work with students with disability, I mean, it's such a broad range of disabilities. So you have to have different solutions for different groups of students. One thing that we've seen is that here in Belize, we're working also with differentiated instruction, and we're seeing that works very well for lots of students with disability also. So yes, I use Belize as an example because that's where I am this week, working with the government. But I hope that responds to a little bit of the question.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Sonia, anything to add from your side?
No, I mean, I agree that it's something that one has to be very mindful of, and you have to be very intentional, right? Otherwise, if you're not intentional, it doesn't happen. So in the last round of the index, we did ask, for example, practitioners, principals of these early learning programs. There were a series of questions that focused on disability, and we found actually very low rates of reports of disability, which obviously isn't right, there's something missing there. So this time, the next round of the index, we're looking at slightly different questions. But, you know, as Emma said, I mean, there's such a range. One has to actually, you have to really focus. So what we're hoping to do on the next round of the index is to test children's eyesight, the children who are assessed, and then get some indication of the gap between children whose eyesight hasn't been picked up previously, so the surface gap, versus those where challenges with vision have actually already been identified, and then we'll use that potentially as a proxy for understanding the gap. But it is a very challenging thing, and something that we've had a lot of discussion around how to be more inclusive. And if anyone has any suggestions for the kinds of things that might be integrated into a survey of this nature, we'd be really appreciative of that.
Thanks so much, Sonia. Kula, will you want to add your thoughts on this?
Yes, we're also very aware of the importance of taking into consideration children with disabilities. But unfortunately, in the pilot of the program, we weren't able to include this component because of many challenges. The first one is infrastructures. We don't really have centers who can host children with disability. The experts of the field are not really available. But the good thing is, I mentioned in the presentation that now we are working on a new version of the program, touching also other stages of the early childhood, including pregnancy, including the period from 0 to 4 years old. And we're also including the components of disability. Of course, in partnership with the government, we're working on a more inclusive program.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Just before we wind up, we've been able to respond to most of the questions, but one of the things I wanted to just ask each of you, again, if we can kind of round robin, is what is one action that you would like to see kind of our viewers and participants today do or take in order to kind of help advance this cause and this important issues that we're talking about today? So maybe we can go backwards. So Kuli can start, then Emma, or then Sonia, then Emma. Kula, do you want to respond to that question? Kind of what's based on your work, what's one thing that you wish our viewers kind of could do, or what action that they could take to help kind of advance this important issue of early childhood education?
As for now, I don't really have something in mind, but the only thing I can think of right now in the moment is from participants to be aware of the children's need, the particularities of the different stages of children development, and also respecting and encouraging them to develop. That's all I can think of right now.
That's great. Thank you. Sonia, how about for you?
Well, I have a real bias to data. So I would say, I mean, to really, you know, one of the objectives of Data Drive 2030 is to democratize data, to try and make data available to people working on the ground with children. So to take it out of the realm of academia. And so I would really encourage wherever you sit on the spectrum of services and support, policy development, advocacy, you know, research, to think about how to integrate data into it. You know, what information could you be collecting that will help you to make better decisions, to be allocating your time and resources most effectively. And the second part of that is to share that, you know, to share it, and especially share things that don't work. I think it's really important for us to be doing that in order to collectively advance the sector.
Thanks so much, Sonia. And Emma?
I love what Sonia is mentioning, because I'm also big on data to measure, to be able to show impact. So that's a very good point, Sonia. I'd like to encourage people to really see how their programs, their interventions, how it can reach indigenous students, because throughout the world we have these vast learning gaps. I mean, in Latin America and Caribbean, where I work, but I know it's the case in other parts of the world, it's you have low levels of learning, but it's particularly indigenous students. In Latin America, it's particularly girls. It's huge gender gaps in learning among indigenous students also, and just see how can you make sure that also indigenous students can benefit from programs. How do you provide interventions in native languages? I mean, it is an effort to translate, make it culturally, contextualize programs culturally, but it's so important. We can't leave these big populations of children behind, and so that would be my my suggestion.
Thank you so much, all of you. I'm going to turn it back to Nirmala for our closing. Back to you, Nirmala.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you to all our participants. I'd like to just say a very, very, very big thank you to all our panelists, to Elizabeth, to Emily. And before we close, I want to ask George if he has anything to say, if he would like to say anything.
I would like to thank everybody again on behalf of Khalifa International Award for Early Learning, and remind everybody who wants to participate in this year's award scheme that the deadline is the 12th of January, so exactly 1 month from today. Whoever thinks that they've got a good project to be reviewed by the panel of esteemed academics that are part of the awarding committee, member of KIL, please take action now. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Can we please give a big round of applause to our wonderful panelists and to our ECDAN colleagues and to the Khalifa colleagues. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, George.